Hello, I'm Dr Nighat. I have 3 children. My youngest is 4, and my middle one is 8 years old, and my eldest is 12. My children and I have always read bedtime stories, and one of our favourite bedtime stories is actually one of this one called Chipatti Moon, or Chipatti Moon if you're saying it in Punjabi. And this is a book that I'm going to read to you. It's by Pippa Goodheart and Lizzie Finley, and it's a brilliant book, and I hope you enjoy it with me as well. So, Chapatti Moon. Mrs. Kapoor was hungry, so she decided to cook up a feast. She chopped chilies and garlic and onion and tomatoes. She pounded spices and she tore coriander. She cut aubergines and cauliflower, potatoes and carrots. She pounded peas and wilted spinach. She scooped yogurt and poured coconut milk. Mrs. Kapoor heated pans and melted ghee. She sizzled and stirred. She simmered and sprinkled to make dosas, masalas, pakoras, samosas and chutney, all steaming and creaming and bubbling and smelling. Wonderful, said Mrs. Kapoor. She put the food into the pots and onto plates with spoons and pickle prongs and a pile of napkins all onto her hostess trolley. Then Mrs. Kapoor made chapatis. She mixed flour and water and shaped the dough into a ball. She rolled a chapati flat and round, then put it into a big hot pan where it began to puff and crisp and turn wonderfully golden. Perfect, said Mrs. Kapoor. But as she took the chapati out of the pan, Mrs. Kapoor jumped with surprise, tossing the chapati onto the floor, and it rolled over and over and out of the door. Look how it rolled over. Come back, chapati, shouted Mrs. Kapoor, and she chased the chapati and so did some more. The chapati went rolling off down the road. I'm going to catch it, said Mrs. Kapoor, and she tried to snatch it, but a boy, thinking it was a ball, kicked the chapati over the wall, where a quick girl caught it and threw it to a man who said, "That's not a frisbee." Then both of them ran after the chapati, which came down to land in the marketplace, where it went bouncing and tripping and jumping and slipping and bumping and tipping and spinning. Mrs. Kapoor was about to catch it when a goat gave a butt that biffed it down the hill. It was racing away again until, "I'll ride my trolley," said Mrs. Kapoor, and off she went over lumps and bumps, lumpety bumpety, rattle and roll. She was catching up with the chapati at last when a donkey hee-hawed and gave a great big kick. Up rose the chapati into the sky, where it glowed like a luminous lantern, or a Chapatti moon, said Mrs. Kapoor. Let's all share a moonlit picnic. So in the creamy, cool light of the Chapatti moon, they danced and laughed and ate, and soon they slumped into a slumber, all except for our very good friend Mrs. Kapoor, who was still awake and still hungry until she saw her Chapatti moon slip sliding down the sky. She held out her hands and she caught it. "I shall eat the moon," said Mrs. Kapoor, and it was just enough. She wanted no more, and it did taste wonderfully moony. Good night, Mrs. Kapoor. Good night. I hope you really enjoyed that book. It's in honour of Spectropolis, and any book donations are welcome. Thank you so much for having me read this book for you. It's been a real honour.